Chapter: Attention to Man.
I asked Anastasia, who taught her to speak, if she barely remembered her mother and father, and rarely saw her grandfather and great-grandfather. The answers I received astonished me, and require interpretation by specialists, so I will try to produce them as fully as I can. For me, their meanings started coming clear only gradually. First, after my question, she clarified,
"Do you mean the ability to speak in languages of different people?"
"What do you mean different? Are you saying you can speak different languages?"
Yes.
German, French, English, Japanese, Chinese.
If an interesting person shows up and you wish to pay him close attention, you can quickly learn to communicate in the language he's comfortable with. For instance, right now I'm speaking in your language.
You mean Russian?
In your Russian, I try to speak using the same idioms and words you use in your speech. That was a little bit hard for me at first, since you have a small vocabulary and repetitive turns of phrase. Your emotions are weakly expressed too. And that kind of language, it's hard to set forth everything I'd like to precisely enough.
Wait a minute, Anastasia. I'm going to ask you something in a foreign language, and you answer me. I said hello in English, then French. She immediately answered me, greeting me in gestures rather than words. Unfortunately, I don't speak any foreign languages. I studied German in school but got only fair grades. In German, I did remember a whole sentence that my classmates and I learned well. I said it to Anastasia. "Ich liebe dich und gib mir deine Hand." She held out her hand to me and answered in German.
"I give you my hand."
She blushed, held out her hand to me and whispered,
"You said something very nice to me, Vladimir."
She understood me no matter what language I spoke. Stunned by what I'd heard and still not believing my ears, I asked, "Are you saying that each person can be taught all languages?" I sensed intuitively that there had to be some simple explanation for this unusual phenomenon, and I wanted to understand it. "Anastasia, why don't you tell me in my language and try to give me examples so that I can understand?" I asked, a little agitated.
Fine, only calm down, relax, or you won't understand. But first I will teach you to write in Russian.
I know how to write. Tell me about learning foreign languages.
Not just write, I'll teach you to be a writer, a talented writer. You will write a book.
That's impossible.
Not impossible, simple.
Anastasia picked up a stick and drew in the earth the entire Russian alphabet and all the marks of punctuation, and asked me how many letters there were there. 33.
There you see. Not many letters at all. Could you call what I've drawn a book?
No. This is the ordinary alphabet and that's all. The ordinary letters.
But after all, every Russian language book consists of these ordinary letters. Do you agree with that? Do you understand how simple it all is?
Yes, but in books they're set out differently.
That's right. All books consist of many combinations of these letters, and man sets them out automatically, guided by his emotions. This implies that first to be born is not the combination of letters and sounds, but the feelings drawn by his imagination. The person who is going to read it has approximately the same feelings, and they are remembered for a long time. Can you remember any images or situations from the books you've read?
Yes, I said after thinking a moment. For some reason I remembered Lermontov's Hero of Our Time, and I started telling Anastasia about it. She interrupted me.
There you see. You can draw the book's heroes and tell me what they felt, and quite a lot of time has passed since you read it. But if I had asked you to tell me what order the 33 letters were set out in, and how their combinations were arranged, would you have been able to reproduce that?
No, that's impossible. I don't remember the entire text word for word.
That really is very hard. So the feelings of one person were conveyed to another person, with the help of every possible combination of those 33 letters. You looked at these combinations and immediately forgot them, but you retained the feelings and images for a long time. This means that if emotions are linked directly to these signs, if there is no thought of all the various conventions, the soul forces these signs to appear in a certain order, alternating combinations of them, so that the reader will subsequently feel the writer's soul. And if the writer's soul has...
Wait a minute, Anastasia. You have to tell me more understandably, more concretely. Show me through some example about learning languages. Who taught you this?
My great-grandfather.
Tell me using an example.
He used to play with me.
How did he play? Tell me.
You have to calm down, relax. I just can't understand why you're so agitated. My great-grandfather used to play with me as if he were joking. When he would visit me alone, without my grandfather, he would always walk up, bow at the waist, and hold out his hand. And I would hold out mine. First he would squeeze my hand, then he would get down on one knee, kiss my hand, and say,
"Hello, Anastasia."
One day, he came and did everything the same as always, and his eyes looked at me tenderly, as always, but his lips said something incomprehensible. I looked at him in surprise, and once again he said something else completely incoherent. I couldn't stand it and asked,
"Grandpapa, have you forgotten what word to say?"
Yes, I did.
Then my great-grandfather took a few steps away from me, thought about something, and walked up to me again, held out his hand to me, and I mine to him. He got down on his knee and kissed my hand. A tender look, and his lips were moving. But he wasn't saying anything at all. I actually got scared. Then I prompted him.
"Hello, Anastasia. Those are the words you've always said, Grandpapa."
My great-grandfather confirmed, and he smiled, and I realized this was a game, and he and I played like that often. First it was easy, then the game got more and more complicated, but always more interesting. I tried to observe my great-grandfather's face very carefully, and remember which words corresponded to the expressions of his eyes, the wrinkles on his forehead, the movement of his lips, and his barely noticeable gestures. It began when I was 3, and ended when I was 11. When man takes a kind of exam that consists of closely watching the person he's talking to, and being able to understand him without words, no matter what language he's using. That kind of dialogue is much more perfect than speech, and also faster and fuller. You call this telepathy. You consider it unusual, something out of science fiction, but it simply involves an attentive attitude toward the person, a developed imagination, and a good memory. Behind it lies not simply a more perfect means of exchanging information, but also knowledge of the human soul, the plant and animal world, the universe. Everything, basically.
This may all be true, but I thought you could speak any language. You just sense the person's thoughts, though, and then not immediately, but after you've interacted with him for a certain time.
Yes, that's true, Vladimir. But afterward you can remember all the words that correspond to his thoughts, no matter what language these words are spoken in. Also, through this game you can learn to understand the desires of animals and birds.
Chapter Flying Saucer, Nothing Special.
Then I asked her to show me an example of her knowledge in the field of technology.
You want me to tell you how various mechanisms from your world work?
Tell me something our greatest scientists have just barely touched on. Make some great scientific discovery.
That's exactly what I've been doing for you this whole time.
Not for me, for the scientific world, so that they recognize it as a discovery. Make a discovery to be proved in the area of technology, spaceships, the atom or fuel, since you say it's all so simple.
Compared with what I'm trying to tell you, these spheres are, oh, how can I tell it in your way? For comparison, they're the Stone Age or something.
That's just wonderful. You think it's primitive. On the other hand, it will be understandable. You're going to prove you're right, and confirm that your intellect is above mine. Tell me, for instance, our airplanes and spaceships. Do you consider them perfected mechanisms?
No. They're quite primitive. They're confirmation of the primitiveness of the technocratic path of development.
This answer put me on my guard, since I realized that either she truly knew incomparably more than the ordinary mind could imagine, or else her opinions were those of a madman. I kept trying to elicit an answer. What makes our rockets and planes primitive? Anastasia answered me after a brief pause, as if she were trying to understand what I'd said.
The movement of all your mechanisms, absolutely all of them, is based on combustion. Not knowing more perfect natural sources, you utilize something primitive and unwieldy with incredible stubbornness. You aren't even stopped by the ruinous consequences of its use. Your airplanes and rockets have simply laughable duration of flight, and they only rise a little bit above the Earth, relative to the universe, and meanwhile this method has nearly reached its upper limit. But that's silly. A combustible or flammable substance pushes this unwieldy construction, what you call a spaceship. At the same time, the larger part of the ship is designed to solve precisely the problem of thrust.
What other principle of movement in the air could there be?
For example, like a flying saucer.
What? You know about flying saucers and the principles of their movement?
Of course I do. It's very simple and rational.
My throat actually dried up and I tried to hurry her along. Tell me, Anastasia, quickly and understandably.
Fine, only don't get upset. If you're upset, this will be harder for you to grasp. The principle of a flying saucer's movement is based on the energy of vacuum production.
How's that? Make yourself clearer.
You have a poor vocabulary, but for this to be understandable to you, I must use only that.
I'll add to it right now, I blurted, agitated. Bank, roof, tablet, air. And I started quickly listing all the words that came to mind at that moment. I even cursed. Anastasia interrupted me.
Stop. I know all the words you could use to express yourself, but there are others too, and a whole other way of conveying information. Using it, I could explain to you in a minute what might otherwise take a couple of hours. That's a lot, and I'd like to tell you about something more important.
No, Anastasia. Tell me about the saucer, the principle of its movement, and its energy sources. Until I understand, I won't hear anything else.
Fine. Combustion is when a solid substance is quickly transformed under a specific influence into a gaseous one, or when in the course of some reaction, two gaseous substances turn into lighter ones. Everyone understands this, of course.
Yes, if you light gunpowder, it turns into smoke, and gasoline turns into a gas.
Yes, more or less. But if you or all of you had purer intentions and, hence, knowledge of nature's mechanisms, you would have realized long ago that if there is a substance that can expand significantly and explode, shifting to another state, then there has to be the opposite process. In nature, these are the living microorganisms that transform gaseous substances into solids. In general, all plants do this, only with varying speed and degree of solidity and firmness of what is created. Look around you. They drink the earth's sap and breathe the air and from this produce a solid and firm body. Wood, say, or, even more solid and firm, a nutshell, or a pit, like a plum has. Invisible to the eye, the microorganism does this at very great speed, seemingly feeding only on air. These microorganisms are the flying saucer's engines. They resemble the brain's microcellule, only with a very narrow function. They have just one function, movement, but they perform it perfectly, and can push the apparatus to 1/19 of the speed of thought of Earth's present-day average statistical person. They are on the inside of the upper part of the flying saucer, between its double walls, which are about 3 centimeters apart. The upper and lower surface of the outer walls is porous, with micro-holes. Through these little holes the microorganisms suck in air, thereby creating a vacuum in front of the saucer. The streams of air begin to solidify even before they touch the saucer, and when they pass through the microorganisms they turn into little balls. Then these little balls increase in size, to about 1/2 centimeter in diameter, soften and slip between the walls to the lower part of the saucer, and once again disintegrate into a gaseous substance. You can eat them if you manage to before they fall apart.
But what are the flying saucer's walls made of?
They're grown.
How's that possible?
Why are you so surprised? Think about it. Lots of people grow a fungus in various vessels, and the fungus makes water into which they mix it something tasty and a little sour. This fungus takes on the form of the vessel it's in. This fungus, by the way, looks a lot like a flying saucer. It makes double walls too. If to its water you add one more microorganism, solidification occurs. But this so-called microorganism can be produced or, rather, spawned, by efforts of the brain or will, a vivid imagination.
Can you do that?
Yes, only my efforts alone wouldn't be enough. It requires the effect of 12 people possessing the same abilities, and it has to be done over the course of a year.
But is there everything necessary here on Earth to make, or spawn, as you put it, this flying saucer And these microorganisms.
Of course there is. The Earth has everything the universe does.
But how are the microorganisms placed inside the saucer's walls if they're so small you can't see them?
When the upper wall is spawned, it itself attracts them and collects them in huge quantities, the way hives attract bees. But here too, efforts of will are required from several dozen people. What's the point of detailing all this any further though, if you still won't be able to spawn that due to your lack right now of people with the appropriate will, intellect and knowledge?
You really can't help in any way?
I can help with this.
Then why don't you do it?
I already have.
What have you done? I didn't understand.
I told you how to raise children. And I'll tell you more. You'll tell other people. Many will understand this, and their children, raised in this way, will possess the intellect, knowledge, and will that will allow them to make not only a primitive flying saucer, but significantly more as well.
Anastasia, how do you know all this about the flying saucer? Is it really through communicating with plants?
They landed here, and I sort of helped them repair it.
Are they a lot smarter than us?
Not at all. They're immeasurably far behind man. They're afraid of him and don't come close to people, although they're very curious. At first they were afraid of me. They aimed thought paralyzers at me. They huffed and puffed. They were trying to frighten and astonish me. I had a hard time calming them down and being nice to them.
How could they not be smarter if they can do what man still can't?
What's surprising about that? Bees make incredible constructions out of natural materials with an entire heating and ventilation system. But that doesn't mean they're above man in intellect. There is no one and nothing in the universe more powerful than man except God.
End of chapter. Join us for the next segment of Anastasia, Book 1 of the Ringing Cedars series, The Brain is a Supercomputer.